saved. His life was on the line. So I just felt that because we need one another no matter who you are. If you're a black man in America, we need one another. We need one another. I would never thought that I would be here with other day. They counted me out a long time, but praise God. I am moving forward because there's so much to say. At this time, and I was on my spirit, at this time, I want to be able to introduce a great man, a brother who I've known for a long time, who running the most difficult position in the city of New Haven. I mean, for a long time. And a lot of times I know he wanted to give up. Because sometimes you're surrounded by everybody else, and sometimes it's your own people. And everybody's pulling at you. Everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants a job. Everybody wants this. Everybody wants that. Can't walk nowhere sometimes. So right about now, I'd like to introduce, because it came out tonight, the superintendent of school, Dr. Reggie Mayo. Amen.
Pleased to be here tonight. I want to congratulate and certainly thank Bishop Brewer for opening his church up for this wonderful, wonderful occasion. Bishop, I haven't seen you in a while. You're looking great. I certainly want to thank Donald for coming up with the idea of getting black males together. Black males to come to action, not just talking. And you know, a lot of talk goes on. In my business, I see a lot of talk on the outside, and people will after that. I'm hoping that tonight will be some kind of indication that we're going to get together, black men, and begin to do something about some of our young people. Let me first of all just say there are many of our young people that are doing well. Don't get me wrong. There are many, and don't forget that. Many of our young people are focused, many of our young people are trying to do that. Last year, actually approved some 150 young people, accepted them in that program. They were like 43. We got $3 million in scholarships for kids 2 years ago, and that sort of was back like about 10 years. Last year year before last, we got $5 million in scholarships for our young people. This past year was $6.5 million. Those are indications that things are getting better and kids are looking up and are realizing the value of what? Of education. But there are this group, and that's why we're here tonight, I think. First of all, to say to our young people that are doing well, congratulations, to continue doing what you're doing. And then for those who are not, to try to provide some help for them. But let's not forget, we need to help these also so that they will not go what? Astray. They will not go to the left. They will remain focused. I thought that I would just talk a little bit from an article that I read about 10 years ago. Didn't pay much attention to it at that time. I ran across it today. And this was given to me by former police chief Nick Pastor. He gave me this about 10 years ago. And he said, you think things are bad now, Reggie Mayo. 10 years from now, they're going to be worse. And here's an article to prove it. And it's about the coming of the super predators. I'm going to try to move through this pretty quickly. One of the things that Donald said to me as he came to me to say a few words tonight was, Reggie Mayo, you can say anything you want to say, but do it in 5 minutes. Let me just say, I don't know whether I can do this in 5 minutes or not, but I'm going to try very hard just to give you a gist of what this article is talking about and what this guy, John DeLudio, that wrote it, what he feels the answer is. He starts off by interviewing a young lady by the name of Lynn Abraham 10 years ago, who was the district attorney of Philadelphia. And in that interview, she was talking about how scared she had become about what was going on with young people, using phrases like violence and youth crime is out of control. Not just talking about teenagers, she stressed, we're talking about boys whose voices have yet to change. We're talking about elementary school youngsters who pack guns instead of lunches. We're talking about kids who have absolutely no respect for human life and no sense of the future. In short, we're talking big trouble that hasn't yet begun to Preston. She went on to talk about that these kids are hardened. They're remorseless juveniles who are showing up in the system. They kill on impulse without any intelligible motive. One of the police officers that John interviewed said, I never used to be scared. Now I say a quick Hail Mary every time I get a call at night involving a juvenile. I go home in one piece I'm hoping to my children. That's what I pray when I get one of these calls. And the frightening thing is that what is happening now, this is in 1995, it's around the corner, a sharp increase will be happening with these young predators, they are called. Most of us that are sitting here were probably blessed to be born to loving, responsible parents or guardians. And most of us were lucky enough to have other adults in our lives, teachers, coaches, clergy, who reinforce the moral lessons that we learned at home. Don't be selfish, care about others, plan for the future, and so on. But some Americans grow up in moral poverty. Moral poverty is the poverty of being without loving, capable, responsible adults who teach you right from wrong. It is the poverty of being without parents and other authorities who who habituate you feel joy at others, joy, pain at others' pain, happiness when you do right, remorse when you do wrong. It is the poverty of growing up in the virtual absence of people who teach morality by their own everyday example and insist that you can follow suit. And this extreme moral poverty is the poverty of growing up surrounded by deviant, delinquent, and criminal adults in abusive, violence-ridden, fatherless, godless, and jobless settings. In some, whatever their material circumstances, kids, whatever race, creed, or color, are most likely to become criminally deprived when they are morally what? Deprived. I thought that this was an excellent article, and that's why, I'm reading some of it to you. On the horizon, therefore, are tens of thousands of severely, morally impoverished juvenile super predators. They are perfectly capable of committing the most heinous acts of physical violence for the most trivial reasons. For example, perception of slight disrespect or the accident of being in someone's path. Of course, all of this leads to other things: sex, drugs, money, and of course those are immediate rewards for these young people. They go on to burglarize and do other things. Let me just move on quickly to what he feels the answer is. The guy who wrote this article, John DeLuglio. He says that his big idea is certainly we're not going to resolve these problems by legislation, bills in Congress, more cops. We're not going to do it that way. He figured that his big idea was that the way that we're going to resolve this problem is actually to borrow some ideas from 3 child development experts. And those 3 experts are Moses, Jesus, and Christ. Moses, Jesus, Christ. My religious leader is going to get me for messing that up. Moses, Jesus Christ, and Muhammad were the 3 child development experts that he thought could resolve this problem. And he talks about religion. And actually he's saying that the church is the most potent establishment in every black community. It is a single entity that can take on the mission of economic development, give people, especially young people, an alternative to drugs and crime. To be sure, black churches are in decline in many needy neighborhoods, but they certainly been doing things and can continue to do things in the best hope for rebuilding the social and spiritual capital of inner city America. We must therefore be willing to use public funds. And I've heard this one before and I talked about it in a negative way because it was taking funds from a lot of other things, but I read back over this. Probably makes sense. Public funds to empower local religious institutions to act as safe havens for at-risk children, church-run orphanages, boarding schools, call them what you please, provide adoption, outplacement services, administer government-funded parenting classes, classes handle the youngest nonviolent student offenders, on and on and on about what the church can do. It certainly goes on to say at the ending, but some of these children are now still in diapers. And that was back in '95, and they can be saved. So let our guiding principle be build churches, not jails, or we will reap the whirlwind of our own moral bankruptcy. And he ended that article. I thought it was a very, very powerful article. And by his ending with the church being one of the answers, I think it's actually powerful, very, very powerful. Now we know the church can't do it alone. I always tell people home and school. You need all three of those things to really develop. And when you talk about home, of course, you're talking about extended families and all of that. But one of the things that I just like to recommend and say and challenge each of us to do is, first of all, get back into our schools, black males. We've got to get into our schools. All our black children see, most of the day, are whites teaching. And let me just tell you something. It's not because you don't want to have blacks there. You just can't find it nowadays. Blacks are not going into the field of education. Winston-Salem University used to be a teacher's college. It is now a university and has many fields instead of just the teaching courses. And I'm just saying, last year they graduated 21 students for education. Just 21. They used to graduate 600-700 kids in education every year. Fathers can do a lot. Compared to students in single-parent families whose fathers had a low level of involvement, students with highly involved fathers were more likely to get A's, less likely to be suspended or expelled, less likely to have to repeat a grade. That's having fathers in what? Schools. Now we know it's traditional that black women, and I hate to say this, fellas, black women have been the strongest pieces of our families. They have been. We gotta start changing. Boys make up 70% of enrollment in remedial reading classes. Boys were read to by their fathers scored significantly higher in reading achievement. Fathers who read recreational have sons who read more and scored higher than boys whose fathers has little or no recreation. Enough saying about that. Let's get ourselves into schools. I don't care whether it's your nephew, niece, or what. If you're not a father, you are an extended family member or just a friend. Let's kind of come to school and show these kids that we care about them. I think that we need to see some color in our schools. I think I want to stop here because Bill Nice is looking at me kind of funny. And he's got a lot to say, but I wanted to talk about some other things that I thought were important. But I've said enough. That's more than 5 minutes. Donna, I really appreciate you having me here. And Reverend, you just watched my back. That's my spiritual leader over there, Reverend Sam Ross.
Here's your man, Dr. Reggie Man. Dr. Reggie Man. Came here and saved the nation. And again,